This is the Preparing for the ACT 2021-2022 English passage number 3. If you know which question you want to see an answer to, you can go jump ahead in the progress bar or in the description. So this passage is called A Rose by the Name Antique. So it's probably something dealing with flowers or possibly something with antiques or maybe both. We'll see. So with shears in my hand, I clip a thin branch from the rose bush in my backyard garden. I place this clipping into the basket next to me and crouch under this again. So first off, number 31 says, we want to look at this phrase right here. I place this clipping into the basket next to me. So do we do the... So the words are all the same. The question is, do we put a comma anywhere? So we have basket next to me, no comma. Basket next to me, and crouch under this again. Basket, comma, next to me, and crouch under this again. Or basket next to me, comma, and crouch next to me, and crouch under this again. So the reason that it's letter A is this is all part of one phrase, the basket next to me. And so we're not going to separate that with a comma. We're just going to keep it all as one phrase and then move on with the rest of the sentence. Because otherwise a comma might, if we did a comma here, that would separate this part right here from the rest of the sentence, but that's still part of it. So that's why the answer is letter A. 32, it says, and I crouch under this again. Now, what is it that we're crouching underneath? The rose bush. But the thing is, we've already used the word this already in the sentence. And the word this right here is referring to a thin branch. And so if we use the same word, we're thinking if we're talking about the branch again. Well, we're not. So we can't use that same word to refer to something different. So the rose bush is definitely much more descriptive. Now, some people may think, well, that's too long, so try one of the other ones. What about one? Well, there's nothing here that we talked about when we talk about the one. Because again, we need to be clarify what it is we're referring to. And I crouch under it again. Well, we don't talk about crouching before. So what are we crouching under it? We don't know. So because of that, we're just going to leave it and make it the rose bush. That way it's very clear about what it is that we are talking about. 33. So I snip a few more branches and then rise to head to the greenhouse. There I will deposit these clippings in rich soil. Roots will take hold, buds will sprout, and a new plant will find a home in my garden. So letter 33, which choice most closely maintains the sentence pattern which the writer establishes after the semicolon? So it says, there I will deposit these clippings in rich soil. Now that's a complete sentence right there. But what's happening afterwards is we have a progression. We have roots will take hold, buds will sprout, a new plant will find a home. So we have this list in order, and every time we have a sequence list like that, we always separate them with commas. So this seems to be pretty good, but let's look at the other options. I will see new buds that have been sprouting. So roots will take hold, I will see new buds that have been sprouting, and a new plant will find a home. All right, that's one possibility. Roots will take hold, followed by the buds, which have sprouted, and a new plant will find a new home. Or roots will take hold, then come the sprouting buds after that. Well, letter D is definitely not. That's definitely wordy. We can collapse all that down to just buds will sprout. Now, letter C is also wordy because it says followed by the buds which have sprouted. Because we mentioned buds, but then it says followed by which have. That makes it a little bit more wordy than what we want. And then finally, letter B, it says, I will see new buds that have been sprouting. Again, I will see, that phrase right there doesn't show up in either of these other two phrases. So that's why no change is the best. My roses are not your average hybrid tea roses, those long-stem special occasion roses with well-formed buds. Mine are antique roses, old or heirloom varieties that have existed in gardens worldwide for centuries. So the question is this phrase, minor antique roses, old or heirloom varieties. So where do we put the commas? So none of these words are going to change. So where do we put the comma? Well, the reason that we put the comma is that because this list right here that seems to be suggested, we got roses, old, and heirloom. Now, roses is a noun, old is an adjective, so is heirloom. That is also an adjective. And so these don't make a proper list because in order to be a proper list, they all have to be nouns. That doesn't work. So it's definitely not no change. Now, with letter G, again, we've got roses, older heirloom, those are adjectives, and then varieties. That's another noun, but they're not all the same thing, so that doesn't work. Roses, old. Now, these two words together, roses, old, don't make sense together because roses, old, we don't put a descriptor word like old after a noun like that. We would put it in front. So the only way that makes sense is roses, comma, old or heirloom varieties that have existed in gardens worldwide for centuries. Number 35. Compared to the vibrant hybrid tea colors, antique rose colors tend to be silenced. So compared to vibrant hybrid tea colors, or we have hybrid tea, comma, colors, vibrant, comma, hybrid tea colors, or vibrant hybrid tea colors with no comma. Now we definitely want to preserve this comma right here because we've got this compared to, so we're comparing this right here to what comes after it. So we want to keep that comma in order to maintain that contrast. Now, vibrant and hybrid tea colors, hybrid tea are both descriptors of the word colors right there. And near as I can read, vibrant hybrid tea colors, these are all, this whole phrase is all one thing. So, we're not going to separate them with a comma. We're just going to keep them as no change. Now, 36, it says antique rose colors tend to be silenced. Well, colors can't be silenced because they don't have any sound. So that's not the word we use. Colors tend to be reduced. Oh, maybe. Colors tend to be muted. Yeah. Colors tend to be lower. We don't tend to reduce or lower colors. When we talk about colors, we talk about muting them, so they're not as vibrant. And that's important because we have the word vibrant right here. So vibrant is a contrast word to the word muted. Their stems are also shorter, and their buds are a bit droopier. Their fragrance, however, is unmatched, and unlike the hybrid tea, whose long stems make into a rose bush that is rather scraggly looking. So we've got 37. And unlike the hybrid tea, whose long stems make into a rose bush, make about a rose bush, make like a rose bush, or make for a rose bush that is rather scraggly looking. So the reason that it's for is they make for something. That's the word. That's what's trying to be communicated here, is the word, it makes for something. That's the phrase. Now with 38, it says, antique rose bushes can be grown in a variety of colors, handsomely landscaping gardens. So it says the writer wants to add a detail here that best completes the contrast to hybrid tea roses in the first part of the sentence. So what choice best accomplishes that goal? So in the first part of the sentence it says, unlike the hybrid tea, whose long stems make for a rose bush that is scraggly looking, antique rose bushes. So we want to contrast. That's what we're looking to do. Antique rose bushes, well, they don't want to be scraggly looking. So what would be an opposite of scraggly? Variety of colors? No, that doesn't contrast with scraggly. Quite large? No, because that would mean that they were small. Less thorny? Well, they don't mention thorns. So scraggly means it's kind of awkwardly shaped, whereas the antique rose bushes are lush and shapely. That's the contrast we're looking for. So next it says the plant thrives best when it is exposed to 6 hours of direct sunlight daily. So 39 says, which choice best introduces the main focus of the paragraph? So are we talking about sunlight for the rest of the paragraph? So let's see. The plant can withstand extreme temperatures, survive nearly everywhere, easier to grow antiques, cultivating hybrid teas, grafting 2 species together. I'm not seeing a lot of mention of sunlight. So it doesn't seem that letter A is the right choice. Now let's look at letter B. The varieties of antique roses are numerous. So here we're talking about varieties. So it talks about cultivating them, talks about grafted are weak and susceptible to viruses, antiques are less prone to disease. So it doesn't talk about varieties. Letter C, aside from the rose's beauty, what gardeners like me most appreciate is that the antiques are durable and low maintenance. Okay, so durable, that's a word. That means that it can, well, survive nearly anywhere. That's a good word for durable. And low maintenance. Okay. Well, that's down here where it says they require far less pruning, fertilizing, and nurturing. So that's a good example of low maintenance. All right. So that's the reason why letter C is the answer. Number 40. It is also easier to grow antiques. Now, the it's right here, that contraction is it is, not the it's possessive. So it's definitely not letter J, because we're not talking about possessing something. Same with H. That is the possessive form. So the question is, it is or they are also easier to grow antiques. So what is easier? Growing antiques. Well, that action is a singular action, so that's why it's letter F. There's no change. Number 41, cultivating hybrid teas, having involved a process of grafting 2 species of rose together, but the grafted area remains weak and susceptible to viruses. So, cultivating hybrid teas. A little bit of an incomplete thought as we read that. So, I'm thinking letter A doesn't work. So, let's see. Cultivating hybrid teas, which involves a process of grafting together. That word which still kind of makes it passive and still waiting for the active verb there. Cultivating hybrid teas involves a process of grafting species together. That makes it active. That makes that the clear verb driving the sentence. So that's why it's letter C. 42. They require far less pruning, fertilizing, and nurturing than their hybrid tea. Well, I think we can probably assume what happens after that than their hybrid tea counterparts. So, they require, antiques require, antiques requiring far less pruning. Well, we don't want to make it passive. We want to say, okay, it's antiques that require it. Now, we don't need to say antiques because the they that's referred to here we're still talking about antiques. We haven't changed the subject, so we don't need that. Now, I could be wrong, so let's check the next page. Counterparts, antiques can reportedly survive without any care from human hands. So this right here, antiques can reportedly survive. That's the key, that's the main noun, that's the main verb. So actually, going back to the previous part, I was actually incorrect in getting rid of letter G. We don't want this to be the main verb. We want this to be a helping verb. So, is it letter G or letter J? Well, it's not letter G because we're still talking about antiques. So, this is why it's letter J. Requiring far less pruning, fertilizing, and nurturing. Now we go to the next page. Antiques can reportedly survive. If we put antiques at the beginning of the sentence, then that would mean that this shouldn't be there. But the reality is, this is not underlined. And when it's not underlined, this has to be there. So that means the other part at the beginning has to change. Antiques can reportedly survive without any care from human hands, a fact that surprises many. So for 43, the writer wants to add a detail here that emphasizes the writer's Rose's ability to survive without human care. So without human care. So which choice? A fact that surprises many. Well, it's surprising, but that doesn't mean they can survive. So definitely not letter A. Blooming year after year, even at abandoned sites. So if a site is abandoned, no one's there to take care of it, so that's a good reason for letter B. Letter C, making them more popular among gardeners. Again, gardeners tend to care a lot for their plants. That doesn't mean that they can grow without care. And then letter D, often blooming between mid-spring and fall. Well, the time of year doesn't matter. What we want to know is, can it grow without care? All right. Next, I dig small holes in a pot of soil, place each clipping a ½ inch deep, and pack down the soil around them. Back in my greenhouse, I strip the clippings of all leaves and branches. Then I wait, the roots will take hold, and eventually the buds will sprout. So number 44 asks, which sentence makes this paragraph the most logical? So what happens? Well, dig small holes and place each clipping and pack the soil around them. I strip the clippings of all leaves and branches. Number 3, then I wait, the roots will take hold, and eventually the buds will sprout. So notice that it says here they strip the clippings of all leaves and branches. And so that has to be done before it goes in, because once it's planted, then you can't strip them. So this is why letter G is the choice, because sentence number 2 has to go first. She has to strip the clippings first, then plant them, and then wait for the buds to sprout. 45. Suppose the writer's primary purpose had been to describe the process of planting a particular flower. Would this accomplish that purpose? So are we talking about planting a flower? No. No, we're not. But that only gets rid of 2 answers. So what about the other 2? Well, they both say no. Letter C says the essay is focused more on comparing the qualities and cultivation of antique and hybrid tea roses. That's what letter C is saying. Letter D says no. While the writer mentions growing antique roses, the essay is more focused on the history of antiques in gardens worldwide. Well, that is not true. We didn't discuss history, but rather comparing and contrasting antique and hybrid tea roses. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out all the other videos in the playlist.